Hi folks, welcome to part 2 of the walk with me at Studley Park. We went through the kookaburras last week, and this week we're getting up close and personal with the Red Rump Parrot and the rainbow Lorikeets. I hope you enjoy this one. Red-Rumped Parrot. Some people know these guys as the grass parrots because they hang about in grass. Not only do they hang about in grass, they're eating the grass. They're actually eating the seeds. These little seeds in here, that's what they're eating. You just see some in the beak there. There'll be some where it's sharp. One of the problems with trying to shoot at 200th of a second is that with a bird like this, it never sits still. Most of your shots are going to be slightly blurry. Not because of you, because of the bird. And it's not just that if the bird has decided to rotate his head or something, that if he leans in or leans back or just sort of changes where he moves, and this guy does that, he doesn't stand still for very long at all. Every time he moves, he's in a different, the plane of focus has moved, so the camera's in one spot, the bird is moving in and out of the plane of focus. So also here, I'm in very, very flat light. It's a shady part of the park, but he's just come and landed right next to me. This is one of the friendliest grass parrots I've seen, the Red Rump Parrot. Usually they're a little bit more shy people. They're not big fans of humans. And yes, there's the patch of red on the rump that gives them their name. So somewhere in here, there's that detail. They have so many colours. They have a beautiful range of colours, these birds. They really do. They are really something. So I'm looking for the occasional one where A, the scene is doing something interesting, and B, where he's sharp. As a tight shot, if you just basically crop in, that's quite nice. Like I think that works quite nicely, just that little scene in there, because you've got that colour, you've got the rump, you've got a couple of flowers. That's quite nice. But, you're going to have to crop a fair old way. But let's use the crop we're going to need on the video. You're going to have to crop a fair old way to get something out of that. And that's okay. Yeah, that's not bad. Again, I'm just going to brighten up the overall frame so that the midtones come up. And here I can actually just drag on the midtones. But I'm just going to bring up that exposure overall to the point where I slightly start to wash out the colours. Just get that back to 0. Oh, okay, right. Might actually bring that up. So I'm slightly washing out the colours, and then I bring back the black point. What happens is you get much more natural colours with this particular technique. So if we look at the before and after, it looks kind of washed out. But in fact, when you see this shot, it looks really natural. So you wash out the midtones just a bit, but you bring back the blacks, and that just gives you the definition in color, and things look a little bit sharper as well. In fact, here I just want to ease off some of the darkness that's just in there. I just want to bring up the midtones just on the eyes and the beak, because they're just a little bit heavy in this frame. That's not bad. That's not a terrible shot of a Red Rump Parrot. It's hard to get a profile shot of these and also see the red. That's the thing that you usually don't get. It's usually like one or the other. So you see the red when they're walking away from you. Is that one a candidate as well? That's kind of cute. That's kind of cute. Don't mind that. Where was... I've got a layer in there somewhere. Just take that out. There we go. Let's put back those eyes, and what kind of crop do we want on that? So again, I'm using that fairly heavy crop to get the most out of that. So that's our shot there. That's all right. That's all right. We'll keep that one. Right. So somewhere in here, we're hoping he did something interesting. That's a really nice little profile there. You can see he's really, really getting into the snacks there. Little thing for the eyes. Let's bring back that crop, because that's what we're doing today. What I want here really is a scene where the light's doing a bit more work for me. I'm just going to warm up that tone a bit too. I feel it's a little on the blue side. Yeah. I'm not using that layer. Let's just get out of that in this one. All right, let's just bring back just a very slight change. If I overdo it, you'll see my colors look kind of weird. But if I'm too blue, and I felt it was too blue, and so I just wanted to warm it up a little bit. And again, the thing that I'm looking for is, where's my sharpness? And it's great to see the detail in the feathers, particularly where these different shades of blue and green. It's great to see the detail in the feathers. And it's sharp. It's sharp here. The eyes don't always look sharp because they're kind of glossy. And so the eyes don't always look sharp even when they are. But he's having to go at the seeds. That's kind of nice. I keep that one. I'm sure there'll be more in here. I've got a lot of shots of grass parrots on this day, so I probably better not spend too much time on the video because we'll be here for a while. And there again, that's usually when you get to see the red rump, is when they're walking off or when they're taking off. That's actually quite a nice pose. We're a little bit out of focus on the eye because we've actually caught the focus on the back. But I'll keep that anyway. That's still a keeper. And I like the way he's just sort of, you get to see how they hunt for the seeds that they're eating, because they're all about seeds. They love a bit of seed, and they love the grass seeds. Anyway, we'll see a bit more of them later on. Oh yeah, these two guys were in the spring mood while I was getting to know my little Red Rump Parrot. There's a couple of shots there. It's like, okay, I guess I should take a picture in case something happens here. But the light's not really working for me. It's kind of harsh light there when you're shooting back up into the sky. We can pull back those, the black point to get that nice and firm there. That's okay. That's kind of different. One of the struggles with this sort of shot is that, what's your focus? What's your subject? Because you've actually got two subjects and you're unlikely for both of them to be in the plane of focus. So here he is absolutely in the plane of focus, but she's not. She's just missed out. But I do love the detail in the wing. You just get to see that crazy, almost random spread of colours that these birds have. They're amazing birds, they really are. Incredibly noisy, but they're amazing birds. So that's okay. That's kind of cool. I kind of like it with the wings out. I don't know whether this one might be slightly sharper than the last, less sharp in fact, so I won't even keep that one. All right. If I recall, these guys didn't put on too much of a show. Whoa. Oh, okay. Must have treatment had slightly different light. Yeah, it's not. Haven't quite got the focus where I wanted. So the focus is on him. Oops. That's what I want. Paste my little previous treatment in. So the focus is on him, just in there. Interesting, but more interesting from a behavioural point of view. You can see he's actually pinning down on the wing there. That's part of the behaviour. Now, as a photograph, okay, it's all right. Not much room for creativity. So yes, let's get back to our. I put that down the wrong side. Let's get back to our grass parrot. Where's our previous treatment for him? Here's one here. All right, I'll grab that treatment. Just copy that, and this is kind of cute there, where he's hiding under the leaves. He was such a nice little fella. He didn't care that I was really, really close by. Indeed, he came and landed right on me, basically on right next to where we were. So he was not too fussed about us humans. And again, that's just such gold when you're trying to photograph some birds. Go somewhere where they don't mind the humans. That's going to help your photography so much. Here, my focus is back here on the seeds, and it's not on him because he's moved a little bit forward from where we started. He started off there, and there he was in focus, and now he's out of focus. And I'm not using the continuous focus or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just basically, I grab a focus lock and I take some shots, and I want it to sit still. I don't want my focus jumping about. That's my personal preference. That's how I shoot. And so in this case, it means that if you just keep on rolling the continuous exposures, eventually your subject will be out of focus. That's okay. As you can see, I get some in focus from time to time. This is cool, where again he's actually keeping the head steady, but the body is moving. So the head is sharp and the body has got motion blur, and that's kind of cool the way they do that. They move one bit, then they move the other. Oh, look at that little pose, so nice. The blade of grass is just in the way, and he's just a little bit out of focus, just a tiny bit out of focus. Where do you go there? Oh, look at that attitude. It's on the move. Now, you can see there's some sharpness and such there. And it's such a shallow amount of focus that you're dealing with. Not a lot to deal with. But I do love that attitude. That attitude's very cool. It's like, what are you doing here, man? Why are you hassling me? All right. To bring down those highlights. So there we've got a little bit of contrast in the light. I think the sun has come through some trees nearby, and that light's actually coming through. And so now I've got to counter some of that contrast, which is good. That's a good sort of problem to have when you're having to dial off a little bit of contrast. Much better than when you don't have any contrast at all. You're having to try to bring out some detail in the scene. Now they are just he's not standing still. I'm not standing still. The scene's on the move. Nothing much is actually sharp. Now, this is interesting here. You can see how he uses that little tongue, and he just sort of tears it in, and the tongue actually holds it into the top of the inside of the beak. And he's got his snack. Beautiful, beautiful little bird. Really lovely that our parks have these amazing little birds just wandering around doing their thing like this all day, every day. That's kind of a cool picture too. I like that one. Here we go. It's got some attitude, like, ah. It's pretty cool. Is it a great shot? It's all right. It's nice. I like this kind of scene because you know the bird is in its habitat. It's not hiding behind a branch of a tree or something like that. Like, this is where it actually spends its time. So as part of the story of the grass parrot, you want to see some shots with it in the grass. That's really cool. And again here, the light's pretty good. It's not too hot back there. The detail is there. The focus is in the right spot. He's sitting still long enough that it's actually sharp. That's a pretty good combination. And you can see how they hide in the grass. That shade of green is so beautifully matched in there. Let's go and see what else we got in there. See, that one looks like it's sharp too. Look at the tiny detail around the chops. Those little fluffy chops. All right. What else did he do? That one's kind of nice. I kind of like the gum leaf that's kind of on the edge there. Lets you know that we're in Australia. Either that or part of California where they planted a whole bunch of gum trees. There we go. I kind of like that intent, the way he's like pretty sure he's got something worth his while there. He looks pretty happy. Oh, look at that. Look at the detail. Look at the detail. And all that is shot at 1/200th of a second, which is not particularly fast. And it's something that when I started doing a lot more of the bird photography, I noticed that lots of people are very concerned about ISO, and so they're not using the ISO to get a higher shutter speed. Now here we're at ISO 1000 already, and we're still only at 1/200th of a second. So we have plenty of room to go still, you know. By the time you get to ISO 3200, that's when you'll start seeing a little bit of drop off in your dynamic range. If you have enough light, you'll still get good shots. You won't get tons of noise. The problem with ISO is when you just don't have light, like birds that are under a really dark canopy, that can be an issue. But this guy here, you know, we've got reasonably good light here. Let's do a version of that shot. Let's clone. Let's do like a variant, and let's get that tight scene. We will have enough for the video, although video we're doing in 4K, aren't we? Going to need a few more pixels than that. But that's pretty cool. I really like that. I like that moment, that intensity, the fact that part of him is blurry, but the eye is still sharp. That's really good. That's something that I like. All right. Like I said, we've got a lot to get through still. I better keep moving. I'm just going to tag a few to keep. He's not sharp there, but that's a shame because you can see the redness on there. It's always good if you can get them coming at you but still see that red rump. That's sort of the best of everything. He's just sort of scooting out of the frame there. There you go. That one looks sharp. And indeed that is. It's nice and sharp where it needs to be. I don't like this scraggly bit of grass there, but that's all right. Let's see what else we get. He's very aware of me with the camera. Oh, look at that. Look at that. We've got the seed. You see that beautiful detail, all those colours. And you're just getting a hint of the blue in there. And we'll get to see a bit more of that later on because we saw a couple of these just as we were leaving the park when it's time to go home. I quite like this with the little flower. I wonder if I've got one where he's actually sharp. That's sharp. Not a great scene. The flower's nice. See that light just hitting the eye? Unfortunately, it's just he's still on the move just a little bit on the shutter there. This is where I probably could have used a faster continuous mode. Like on this one, I'm shooting something like 10 frames a second. I can take that up to 60 frames a second if I really want. Problem with that, of course, is that you just end up with a lot of files and a lot more processing to do. And that's not always good for when you're trying to do a video. Makes for a very long video. Look at that guy. Look at him. Just missed the eye there, but I got the rest of the chest. And he's on the move. He's out of frame again. Oh, that's right. And then we saw some bees. Blah, 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 blah. A bunch of bees. We saw some flowers. Usually I would spend a bit more time on the flowers, but we've already been going for a fair bit on this video already, and I just sort of don't want to spend too much of the audience's time. Oops, the wrong one there. There we go. And also in this particular instance, the wind was really blowing things about. And every time I tried to work a composition, the wind would just start to kick things about. So none of these are really doing a lot for me. I didn't quite get into the groove on this guy. Okay, this was nice. I started playing with the water because as the sun was coming off the water and you get all the reflections, and I wanted something in the foreground to focus on so that I could get the reflections in the background. just to show you. Here's like a video where you're seeing effectively the aperture of your lens, and in the, with this lens it's quite smooth the way the aperture works, and so we're seeing the sparkles off the water just turning into these sort of out of focus little spotlights, and that's really nice. And here it works slightly better. So here we have something to actually focus on, and then we've got the sparkles on the water in the background. Again, here I might just bring up the midtones and find our black point. Do I want it black? I'm not sure. Probably keep that nice and soft. In fact, you know what? I don't need to do much here. I really just like having something that's in the focus, but having all of that poker in the background kicking about. And I want to keep this one fairly soft, so that looks pretty nice to me. Maybe I'll warm it up a little bit too. I've done that. There you go. That's a keeper. That's the kind of thing that I was hoping to get out there. We've got a couple of them. I've actually got a branch in the way. It's actually between me and the leaf. I'm on a fairly skinny part of the trail. There's not much room to maneuver to get into a different position. And here this works as a video too, because you're seeing all of the twinkling going on as to where things get caught in the background. So that's quite nice. A couple of bits of video there that are cool. All right, I better race along. It's been a fairly long chat, this one. I've got a ton of rainbow lorikeet photos here, so there's no way I'm going to be able to get through them all. But I've had a quick glance through beforehand, so that I have some idea as to what's actually on the video. This is not flashlight. This is just the way the light was coming in through the trees. But you can see how it's kind of, the light's coming off the water and coming into the trees, and it looks like I've actually triggered a flash right down to the catch light on the eye. But that's natural light. That's just how the world was just throwing the light into the scene on that particular day. It's going to bring it up a little bit further because I do like that light and bright kind of look. You can see all the patchwork on his pantaloons down here. He's got all these different patches. There's a closely related bird that's called the scaly-breasted, and it looks a lot like a rainbow. When you see them side by side, it's quite obvious which is which. But again, it's got that randomness about the feathers and the patterns. And you know what, that's kind of nice. I've got a lot of different shots of rainbows here, and this is why I'm not going to spend too much time on these ones. He's a little bit out of focus there. Is that better? About the same. Okay, there we've got a little bit of a video where he was basically throwing his head from side to side as a way to tell me to get lost. He was quite curious about us. As it turns out, he was way more curious than I would have expected, and ended up taking quite an interest. He and his mates, I think that they're used to dropping in on some of the people who live near the park, and dropping in on their balconies and expecting food. Whoop, there we go. This one's got a different exposure in the shot. So that was the feeling I got at the end of my visit, because they all started to come in and to hang out a little bit. Might just drop everything back to 0. The treatment I dropped on was a little bit harsh for this scene. He's all right. That's a nice picture of a rainbow, but anyone can get a shot of a rainbow these days. They are all over Australia, all over our cities. They're very friendly to a fault. But I was looking for something a little bit more quirky. So here we are. We've got a different spot. So we had something like I think at one point we had like a dozen of them that had actually come in to say hello. It was quite bizarre. And I want to warm that up again. Maybe I do. I like the way that light's coming in across. It's kind of hot and cold, but we can control that a little bit with our processing. And I just want to pop him off to one side of it. He's a little bit too much in the middle. So there's our little guy. There's our rainbow. And I'm just going to harden up the blacks, not the midtones. The midtones I'm going to keep on flushing them out and harden up the blacks. And it just lets the overall scene be a little bit softer. That's pretty cool. A lot of detail there. Now, you can see we just have a lot of pictures. Now, here's where I think it gets a little bit more interesting because of the layers. We're looking through so many layers of leaves and bush. And so some bits are sharp and some bits aren't. And so this is where you start to get a little bit of art comes into the photography, because the camera's seeing light and the camera's seeing a scene. It's not just about a bird, it's about the light. It's about how you can use that camera to see this scene. And in this case, I'm going to go to a little bit of length just to bring up some of that, to make it soft like the rest of the scene, because that was a little bit heavier. And you see, if I want, I can actually bring back that black point and pull back the definition, but I like the softness. I like that cloudiness. That really works for me. That's something that I think is really special. And so I'm just going to play into that a little bit. Again, with the 16:9 crop, I think you lose some pretty important stuff because he's quite tight. That bird is very, very close. If I do a different clone, one that has the whole scene, I think it's great to see that whole branch personally. And then we have a few more versions. You know, we have all these different kind of scenes. And I love it. I love this, you know, this beautiful, colourful creature peering out of this soft, ethereal forest. Not so keen on this lump of something down there. Let's see what happens if I can get rid of him nicely. There you go. It's much less distracting. And there you go. That's a pretty easy treatment to give to these guys. I don't need to do too much. You know, the more you try to bring up detail in the bird, I think the more you're crushing the character of the overall scene. And it's a beautiful, soft scene. So I don't want my blacks to be too black or my whites to be too white. You know, like if you overdo the whites, you polarize the scene. So I just want to keep that nice and soft. That works for me. And I've certainly got plenty of versions of that to choose from as well. Don't need that. Oh, I've still got an adjustment layer from earlier too. Not that actually that's probably not the right frame to choose. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so here we've got a portrait version, which I really like. I'm going to bring back the vignette. That just helps to make the background darker compared to the bird relatively. And now I can bring up the overall exposure like that. And it just helps to frame our subject a little bit more. So there you go. That's worth keeping. Again, if you just sort of pull the before and after, you can see how the bird is dark in a bright scene, and here I want a brighter bird in a darker scene, you know, so that the background frames him a little bit. Him or her, I got no idea. I couldn't tell you which is which with a rainbow. Maybe something I can research. Oh, that's nice. Now here I've just sort of pulled back a little bit, so bring more into the scene. And it's something that we don't tend to do as often as we should when we're shooting birds, because, you know, we're always trying to get closer and closer. Just to recognize that bringing in some scene, and indeed I could probably use a bit more of the scene here, but just to bring in some of that scene, let's go back into the background. Here we go. Just the midtones don't need to be quite as punched out. Let's just flatten that out. The light's just a little bit different on this one. Bring that up some more, bring that down some more. You know, just bring in some more of the scene gives you room for composition. Now you've got a composition because you've got some space. It's something we tend to forget. So much of photography, we think we're just trying to shoot some detail, and it's not. It's composition. Got to leave room for composition in all this as well. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Again, I just really love the way the bird is framed by the scene. This bright area here is a little bit distracting for me. So what are we going to do here? First thing, I'm just going to paint in an area here and just bring up some detail on the bird. Just that front bit was pretty heavy and dark. Just drop in a little bit of a vignette to see. You know what? Actually, I don't think I want the vignette. I think I just want my background to be soft. It's almost like a watercolor at this point. Like I'm really, really pushing into the high key. And high key is a space where I like to be with my processing. Creatively, it's certainly, the high key will push your ISO capability much more than anything else. You know, and here we're at 1000 ISO, no problem. It doesn't matter. The high key's working nicely. I might even come off that saturation a bit. It's a little bit intense. Oh, look, maybe this guy up here is just sufficiently distracting that I might try to extract him. Okay, that doesn't work great. Let's see what else we can drop into that area. It doesn't look too obvious. Okay. And now I just have to make sure that I'm not encroaching on my subject, because it's all about my subject. There you go. Pull back. Does that look any better? Let's look at the before and after. You can see how the bird is heavy in a bright scene there, and it's just evened it out a bit and taken out that eye magnet. There you go. Before and after. That's quite nice. I like that. And I'll do a version that can go onto the video, the head of the video. Let's see how that works. That should be all right. Get a look at that. And it's a beautiful, sharp image with all these lovely soft elements going around the edge. All right. Now, that's right. Let's just sort of take that treatment. I've just copied that treatment. You see he's sort of like starting to move his wings a little bit. And that's a nice little pose with the mouth open. And oh, there we go. It's just sort of stretched out those wings a little bit there. That's quite nice. Hopefully he's sharp. Oh, I don't need that healing layer in there. And my adjustment layer is probably in a different spot now. So I'll just clean that up a little bit. There we go. Just clean through there. So I'm just bringing up the detail on the bird only. That's quite lovely. I quite like that. Get a little bit of the feather detail there. Oops. What do I want? I want, that's what I want. Here we go. Look at that. That's quite nice. There's enough detail going on there to make me happy. All right. Keep them rolling. So they were calling out quite a bit. Oh, I think that's beautiful. It's really soft. And there we go. There's a moment where he just like popped out the wings for a second. So there we are. Probably there. That's beautiful. Let's see how that fits in. Again, we'll paint in that foreground there. clean it up a little bit. Do I need it around there? Probably not. Maybe in this case even, you could justify putting in a gradient just to darken up that top bit there. Now that you've got that, what I'm seeing is if I can come back to our background and bring up the overall exposure. There we go. And I might even put in another gradient at the bottom as well. So I don't usually do this much work on a single image. In fact, if we're going this far, let's just lighten up that bit out there, because that's actually, I'll just use the midtones only, because it's a little bit distracting. And yeah, that's a little bit distracting in there too. So I'll apply the same thing there. So let's see what that looks like before and after. So that's what we started with. That's what we finished with. See how the eye now will come into this section here, whereas before the highlight in the top was really sort of catching it. And that works quite nicely. Quite like that, and I'll definitely keep one of those, and probably worth having one of those at the header of the video, because there's a lot that's going on there. The eyes are sharp, the wings are not, they're flapping out, but that's what wings do. And that's, that was kind of a cool moment there in the bush. Now I can bring in that vignette. Now I've got everything else nicely balanced, and there we go. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So we do have quite a few images in here. They were very, very friendly. And when you think about a scene like this is nice, because he is just, so here we don't have anything actually between the lens and the bird, so that makes for a slightly clearer shot. I'm going to start by just taking off the contrast a bit, because it is a very, very contrasty scene. So just to help me to see the potential of this scene, and I guess in this case, this crop actually works quite well. And again, once you do that, once you just sort of take off the contrast, maybe not a lot you really actually need to do. The way the light's coming into the lens is really doing all the work for you. If you wanted to, if you're feeling so inclined, you could do that thing where you just lighten up the midtones just around the body. Well, we're going to do that. Might as well nab the head there, come in a bit, and just sort of bring down. See there, you can see as I bring down that black point, but I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. So I go a little bit too far, and then I come back. That's how I get to make the most of these tools. You go too far, and then you come back. And there you go. I thought that I was pretty much done for the day after the rainbows. And then saw this little lady. And this is the female. So you see the difference between the boy and the girl. The boy's got intense colours. The greens are bright. It's got the yellows. It's got some amazing flashes of blue. We'll get to see a little bit more of that later. The girl looks relatively plain. And at first glance, in fact, when we were walking down the path, headed back to the car here, and you'd swear there's just a rock there, or perhaps like a mouse. Like, it's just such a dull kind of color to the eye when you look. When you look through the camera, of course, you get a slightly different vibe, because the camera lets you see some of the subtleties of the color. And the first thing that I want to draw your attention to is just this hint of teal coming through on the edge. So the colors are overall grey and orange, and then you get this hint of teal in here. And that's really just the start, because in fact there are blues and there are yellows in there as well. And we'll get to see a little bit more of that. So this little lady, you know, while this shot here is nice and clear, you know, the light's not really doing a lot for me there. That won't be the shot that I decide to keep, I'm sure of it. But I kept taking a heap of shots because that's what you do. So I have lots and lots of not very good shots of a female red-rumped lorikeet. And you can see here, you see some of those extra colours. So there's that green, that, you know, that grassy green. You're seeing a hint of the blue. I'm thinking at one of them here, actually get to see a little bit of her profile as well. Perhaps it's that one there. There we go. Okay, so here you can see there's a hint of orange. You've got the tealy colour. You've got the blues. There's a nice little range of hues in there, in fact. So it's not quite as plain a bird as you might think. People tend to think, oh, you know, the girls aren't as interesting and stuff, but they're actually beautifully subtle colours, and I think they're worth your time as a photographer. There you can see she's got a little bit of seed in her mouth. She's very aware of my lens, and I'm aware at this point that I'm having an impact on the bird. And this was about the point where she actually took off and flew into a tree. Which is not really what you want to have happen. If you can leave the birds without actually having caused an impact in their day, that's much better. And so that's generally what I aim for. In this case, I'll also point out the light. So the light's actually behind me, which is why if you look at this without processing, it's quite flat, but the light's actually behind me. And that means it's a very, very flat kind of light. So there's no real contrast happening there. And it's, you know, it's kind of washed out a bit. And so I brought down, had exposure to let the colors come up at least. But it's very, very flat light. You can see the catch light on the eye is basically, that's where the sun is, you know, so it's slightly higher, but it's pretty flat light. So that's not ideal light. That's not what we aim for in general. And then she flew up into the tree, not far away, because her partner was just around the corner there, so she didn't go far. So she popped up into the tree, and as you can see, I'm trying to take shots while the leaves are blowing around and stuff like that, and that makes it a little bit tricky. Now, I've got some here. These ones have actually been processed already, and the reason is I did this recording once through and the computer crashed. And so I lost all the video, and so I'm actually going through a second time. So I'm just going to show you how I processed this image. So that's the raw file, that's untouched, and that's the work that's been done on it. So that's a pretty nice change. That's a pretty good improvement. Now let's have a closer look at what's actually happened here. Actually, first, let's have a look at those colors, because I told you this bird is often thought of as being quite drab, the females, because the boys are so colorful. But look at the subtle colors that are there. Look at how it goes from the olive to the yellow. This beautiful soft yellow tone that's in there. Plus, of course, you've got the grays and the browns blended in there. And then you've got the little hint of the yellow that's on the edge of the wings there. You've got the blue that's inside the wing, and inside the tail feathers down there, you've got the green. And just have a look at the shoulder there. On that shoulder, you can see there's a little extra color as well. So, in fact, there's a lot going on with these girls. They're very beautiful. You just have to get close enough to look at them. You know, and this is where cameras, I find, this is where cameras are so great, that something like, you know, the G9, that is so easy and so light to carry, and suddenly a little brown bird in a tree takes on this whole new dimension, because you're seeing the colors and you're seeing the beautiful detail in the feathers. You're seeing the cute little expression on their eyes and their fluffy chops. You know, you can't see that detail with the naked eye so easily. And so I do love the way that these cameras allow us to get so close and so intimate with the birds. It's really something. So what's happening in this shot? Well, not much. In fact, with this one, I've got no layers whatsoever. All I've done is I brought up the midtones. It's very important. You know, your control of the midtones. This is really where you're setting you know, the contrast and the shadow detail in the midtones. So by bringing up, I take off the gap between the hot spot here and the cool spot there. I could do more here. So, you know, I could paint in an extra layer here, just there, and use that just to bring back a little bit more of the detail. So if I bring back the highlight detail, that just brings back a little bit more still. That just helps to soften that up. So if we were to turn on and off that layer, there you go, off, you can see that's sort of like brighter, and then that's with the layer on. So that does a little bit there just to bring back that detail. I think that's a marvelous image. I'm really pleased with that one. And of course, the challenge I had on this day was like the leaves blowing in front of my subject the whole time. Because by this stage, things were getting a little bit windy and a little bit tricky. I don't necessarily want a leaf in front of my subject. You know, it's nice off to the start. And here I've got room where I've got a little bit of space for composition. And the thing I love about this bird, especially the girls, see the color of this gum tree. The color of the gum tree. It's got the yellows. It's got the grays and the browns, just like her. The blues have a hint of the sky, and the greens are the same as the leaves. They're all the same color. The same color. This bird is the color of the bush. And that's what's really lovely. And when they're in the tree, you can see that. Of course, we need to keep in mind that these birds generally, they like to be on the ground rather than in trees. They're in trees for safety. They're on the ground to feed. They do all their feeding on the ground. Look at the detail there. Look at that beautiful detail. Again here, one of the problems when you're shooting from the ground, you're shooting up into a tree, you don't want them too high in the tree, because the higher up they are, the steeper the angle that you're shooting, and that's not ideal. And one of the problems with that is here I've got to focus on probably the neck, just on the shoulder of the wing there, I'd say. That's where it's sharpest. And by the time you get up to the eye, it's out of the plane of focus. So that's quite a steep angle, and you're losing your depth of field very, very quickly. And it's something I've talked about quite a lot, that we tend to think, oh, I need like a 2.8 lens if I'm going to get a good shot of a bird or something. It's like, well, if you've got an 800mm perspective, so this is a 400mm lens on a micro four thirds G9. So a 400mm lens gives you the equivalent of an 800mm lens. That's a very long lens. And at that kind of focal length, you don't have a lot of depth of field. So even at f6.3, I have lost the depth of field to get the eye sharp when I have the shoulder sharp in this particular case. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind and be careful of. And so here, one of the things that I'm saying is that, okay, I got a couple of good shots and I'm happy with that. I want a different angle, because I don't necessarily want to be shooting up and over the shoulder. I would prefer to have an angle where I can focus on the head, or where she looks down at me. And in this particular angle, that wasn't going to happen. Plus, I had the leaves were coming across, and so I decided I needed to find a slightly different angle. And I took some shots of the boy while he was down there too. That's the boy there. We've seen a fair bit of the boys in the past. Again, here's that flat light, so the light's pretty flat coming through there. Given the angle of the lights right behind me, you can see the shadow angle. You know, there's not much angle there, and so, you know, the light's not doing anything to make that scene great. Anyway, let's go back to our girl. So as I come back up and get some shots of her, and here the seeds are all sort of like stuck to her beak, and she's actually calling out. She's calling to the partner. So the boy and the girl are talking. And that was quite cute. And so I have a couple of shots there with her getting into song. And he's not really paying much attention. He's not fussed by me at all. He's aware of me, but he's not fussed. And he's just basically continuing on with his march of the seeds. They love these little seeds. And that's their diet. It's their whole day. They just go around eating eating the seeds off these little bits of grass. And that's why they used to be known as the grass parrot, although their technical name is the Red Rump Parrot, is what they're really all about. In fact, that one there, I quite like that scene, that crop. Yeah, you can't actually see the red rump there, and that's a bit of a shame. I do find that with a bird like the Red Rump Parrot, because it's the rump that IDs it, lots of people don't like to show a photo of the Red Rump Parrot that doesn't actually show the rump. I'm not so fussed about that. I think that's just fine. Anyway, there's our little guy. I think that's worth adding into our processing queue. Now, our girl. Let's get back to our girl. All right, so I'm aware that she's aware of me, and she's quite comfortable up there. She's far away from me, and I can't touch her. And I'm trying to get a few more angles. Actually, I quite like this one. I know it's kind of steep, like I'm still actually peering up into the sky a bit. And, that eye is a little bit out of focus, but I've got, all of the seeds on her gums there, that beautiful, fine feather detail. And I love that pose. I love the shape of these birds. In fact, the Red Rump Parrot, depending on what they're up to, they can change shape quite a lot. But they've got this classic parrot shape. And I think that, with the portrait shot, that comes up quite nicely. And there she's turned her head a bit, and that's nice. The eye's not quite as sharp as I would like it. And I have a couple of versions of these. And that one's good because the eye is actually sharp there. The plane of focus gets both the eye and also the feathers just on the neck there. She's kind of floofed up a little bit. She's going into a cleaning mode. And again, let's just look at the processing on this. That's a pretty significant difference if you think about it. If we were to go back to the raw file, I'm just going to do a new variant. And so the new variant is untouched. That's the raw file untouched. If you were to simply bring up your exposure, so to overexpose it, so that's one stop over. You've already blown out the highlights, and you still haven't quite got into as much of the shadow detail here as you might like. Like maybe that's enough. It depends on your preference. So if you're working on exposure alone, it's pretty hard because you've lost all that detail. And this is where your dynamic range is so important. Look at that. You just bring that detail back, and suddenly you've got a workable shot. Now, the way I processed this image, however, I did one more thing. I've got a little adjustment layer. So let's have a look at our layer tab here. Let's pop that open. And if I basically turn it off and then turn it on again, you can see exactly what's going on there. I've chosen to paint in this area here to bring it more into line so that the difference between the highlights and the shadows are not as great. That's all I've done there. I really like that little shot. I know it won't be the best of the day, but it's one I definitely think is worth keeping. And there she's popped up again just to keep an eye on me. And so she's pretty comfortable up there. You can see I'm taking a lot of shots. You can see that 1/200th of a second is okay in general with a perched bird, but every now and then they're going to move a little bit more than your shutter speed will allow. And she was comfortable up there. I didn't get a sense that she was going to move anytime soon. So I moved instead. And I looked for a different angle. And so this is where I started to like just a different angle on the light. I've got the leaves out of the way because the leaves were getting in the way of the shot quite often on the other side. And here you can see the shadows of the leaves are coming across from time to time. So that's like a new variable. But we have little moments like this where she tucks her head under the wing just to do some housekeeping under there. You can see the color, just the banding that's under the wing there. That's really nice. A lot less color with the girls and with the boys under the wings. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. So she seems pretty comfortable up there. She seems pretty relaxed and was going about her business. But she's certainly aware of me. She's certainly keeping an eye on what I'm doing. and obviously thinking about what her next snack might be as well. And there we are here. She's absolutely tuned in to what I'm doing. Now here's one with quite a few layers. Again, let's look at the before and after. So the before, the shadows are not really where I want them. So the brightest points are the things that matter the least, and the darkest points, things that probably matter the most. And so I've got a few layers that are in play there. I've got a layer just to brighten up this part of the background, because that was dragging it down a bit for me. Like that, you can see. Maybe that's nice too. I've got a layer just for the tree trunk. So let's turn that off, and I've got a layer for her. So I've basically got 3 different layers just to neutralize the scene a little bit. Now I'm starting to wonder whether I actually did want to bring up the details on there, whether to leave that. That looks nicely framed actually. So yeah, so here I've darkened up the tree trunk because it was quite bright, but I brightened up the bird. And so there we go. You can see there I've got a dark bird and a bright trunk, and now I've got a bright bird and a slightly darker trunk. Just trying to even them up. So that looks pretty good to me. And so, I kept looking for angles. This was quite cute. Maybe that'll work. Let's have a look. Bring a little extra contrast in, because whenever you're doing a silhouette, you need contrast. So the trick here is I'm adding contrast in at the white end. I'm going to flatten out contrast across the scene. So now I can bring up that exposure, and I don't want to see all this detail in here. I want that to be black. So how do I get that? Because it's going to bring down that black point like that. And there you go. So let's have a look. You can see I've just got a little bit more contrast in there, but just sort of towards the highlights. So that's quite nice. We'll keep that. All right, so the thing that I want us to have a look at with the boy, here he's kind of lifted back the shoulders and popped out the wings just a little bit, just enough, so that we can see some of the amazing colors that he's got hidden away inside. He's got these incredible blue inside the wings. So that's some of the color that you just don't ordinarily see. If you think about this is what he looks like when he's simply walking about, and suddenly, if he rolls back his shoulders, then he's got all this extra color that you couldn't even see before. It was hidden away. So I think that was pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool the way they're able to do that. So there you go. Not the greatest shot, but it gives you an idea as to how the color variation that's going on with the boys, with the bright yellow, the bright greens, this beautiful tealy color, the aqua blue, the French blue that's inside there, the red rump. That's quite an amazing little bird. So that was kind of the best shots of the day for the Red Rump Parrot. I did decide to try to grab a little bit of footage just at the end of the day of them eating some seeds. There you go. There's the boy and the girl in the same shot. They're very different. They're quite joyous. But I reckon some of my favorite shots of the day will probably actually be the girl. I thought she was kind of a rock star today. That one of her peering through the trees is definitely one of my favorites. So I hope you enjoyed meeting the Red Rump Parrots, and maybe there's some in your backyard too. Have a great day.